Okay, so today we're going to be practicing a positive mental attitude, which who doesn't want to be more positive? So to start, we are going to, let's see, sorry. Okay, so a positive mental attitude is a term that Napoleon Hill coined, and he was a famous author from the 40s. And his big book was Think and Grow Rich, and then his second book was Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. And so we're using that terminology because it's common. People have heard that before and understand what that means. Reaching for the positive, which is similar to what I've shared with you all in the past about pivoting to the positive. You know, we've talked about if you recognize you're feeling negative or you're being negative, you do have a choice in that moment to find something positive. And so basically, he made his career on helping people do that. And so I loved this quote. There's very little difference in people, but that little difference makes a big difference. The little difference is attitude, and the big difference is whether it's positive or negative. And we all know that. You guys, as caregivers, I mean, your heart is so big and so loving. And so it is very hard when you're having to help someone who's negative, but positivity is infectious, and we know that, right? So, you know, you light up a room naturally, the room's going to calm down and be more upbeat. Okay, so then I wanted to talk, just landing just the obvious, the definition of attitude. We all know attitude, but, you know, you think about, oh, positive attitude, or also like she's got attitude, you know? So it's a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something, typically one that is reflected in a person's behavior. And of course, we've talked about behavior before, about how people behave signals so much about their state. And, you know, in my work, mindfulness, that's part of why I'm so amped to do this work, is really, I think a lot of people don't fully understand their behavior speaks volumes. And if they could become more mindful of how they're acting, then they would have an easier time, you know? And so today I'm just wanting to give you some top 5 tips. And when we move into the section of tips, you know, I will invite you to kind of, it won't be a full-on meditation like we've done in the past, but a bit of a reflective time. And so as I'm moving through it, I meant to tell you, you know, make sure you have something to write with, because I will be asking you a few questions. And so y'all can grab that as we move forward. Okay, so landing what we've already talked about, right? So we've already brought up a few. You know, Elizabeth had talked about accepting the unacceptable. For those of you who are new to the group, I was just talking about, you know, in our culture, there's a lot of people unaccepted. It's just very common to not accept what's going on. It's almost like it's revered as valiant. And in some cases it is, but for your well-being, if it's in your face, it's better for you to just accept it. And our culture doesn't teach us to do that. So accepting it doesn't make it okay. It makes you not pushing against it anymore. Not because if you're in resistance to something, then you can't really find the solution. And so for me, I think it's a really beautiful tool to remind yourself, like, in something that's bothering you in your life right now, there's a component of it you are unwilling to accept, but it's already in your face. So accepting it would give you ease. Sorry, I dropped down to the bottom one because Elizabeth had brought it up earlier. And then let's just move from the bottom up. So pivot to the positive is what I just explained about. We've talked about identifying negativity and shifting your thinking over, kind of like the battery, you know, it has a positive, negative charge, or the pendulum swings one way or the other. You know, you guys can find more of a positive approach to life experience just by recognizing you're being negative in that moment and that it's a choice. And then the top one, we talked about gifting yourself. And this is the first time I was with you all, and I was giving you physical ideas and mental ideas of gifting yourself. And this is when, you know, and I talked about throughout the day, you need moments of pause, moments of reflection, moments to breathe. You're more efficient for Elizabeth and your clients if you're taking time for yourself too. You know, the old way of being is kind of like, you know, rev it up, keep going, don't stop. And it's just a really old way, and it's not the way that uplifts everyone. It's just like we talked about, if you have the oxygen mask on first, when we used to be able to fly, got to find a new example for our new world. But when you have the oxygen mask on, they ask you to put it on first when you're flying, so you're thinking more clearly, so you can help the person next to you. If you're trying to help them first and you fumble, you make it worse because you're losing oxygen, right? So it's always about recognizing I can give myself assistance. And we talked about I gauge it by how much time do I have. And we said, sometimes you need to give yourself some help, and you only have 30 seconds because you're about to walk into, a client's home or into a facility. And in that moment, you have to come up with something mental, be it a beautiful scene in your mind's eye or your favorite animal, or it could be a million different things. And then we talked about, and then throughout the day, at lunch, maybe you change your behavior and you do walk around for 30 minutes and you do take in nature, And so those are the things we've already discussed that will help you, that you already have in your toolbox. So I wanted to land those and make sure. And if, as I'm presenting these, if there's anything you're not remembering or you want to ask me a question, make a note of it so we can touch base about that at the end. Okay, so moving on. Okay. So I want you to think about the top 3 most positive people you know. So as I say that, most positive people you know, just jot down those people. And it could be, so maybe it's someone you don't know, but you revere them. Like maybe it's J-Lo. It's like you haven't met her yet, but you feel like she'd be just amazing, right? Top 3 most positive people. And you can add yourself if you want to, if you believe that. Giving you some accolades. Okay, and I'm gauging y'all by your heads being down. So just when you're done, you can put your, you can look up, so I'll know you're done. And hopefully you're not at a loss, right? If you are at a loss, that's okay. It's good information. It means you need to find some more positive people in your life. While y'all are finishing that up, there's a study. I'll have to find the exact study. I don't know the name, so I can't give you the information to reference it. But how the top people you hang out with, kind of like the sum total of who you are too. So if you're wanting to change things about your life and you're hanging out with people that are a lot more negative than you, it's a tough decision, but you have to make the decision to find more positive people, because it's like the sum total. You guys all hanging out is putting you guys at a certain place, and you can't move beyond that unless you get a different, more positive group supporting you. Okay. So it feels like most of you guys are done with that. Good job. Okay. So then I want you to think about these people, think about them one at a time, and it might come to you really quickly. And this might be something that takes you a day. You don't have to land it right now. I'm not going to specifically make you answer me on this, but what is your favorite thing about them? Like, what is it about them that you feel is very positive? So like I have a friend named Karen, and she is just, you see her and you like want to breathe in deeper. She's just light and airy and fluffy, and all these descriptions I would probably never say about somebody, but it's important for you to understand how I perceive this person. You know, it's possible I say to Karen, hey, I feel like you're really fluffy, and she could totally take that the wrong way, right? So it's not even about you're not telling them necessarily, but it's how you are gauging what positivity feels like. So when you're done with the first one, you move to the second. So we just want to kind of land one main description about each of them. And again, if you only have one or two, it's okay. You're holding space for that positive person to come into your life. Okay, so we have most heads down. Good job. Keep working, guys. Keep working. When you're ready, you can look up. All right. So as you finish up that, let's just check in on how you're feeling right now. As we've been talking and we're talking about positive mental attitude, you might even, maybe you got on the call and you're feeling a little agitated or, a different, not as beneficial feeling. Maybe even as we've been focusing on these positive people, you kind of feel a little, less stress, just directing your mind to these thoughts just in this short time we've been together does matter. So if you can, I can feel it in me. So I'm thinking maybe you guys can feel it too. Okay. So now, if you were at a loss for descriptions, which I kind of don't think you were, let's just, I already know kind of what you guys would say about these people, right? So some of the things I jotted down, I've already told you the example of Karen, but they could feel energized to you. They could be kind. They could be loving. They're upbeat. They're fun. They're creative. They generally are good at communicating. Because if you feel like you can't communicate, then you kind of get stuck inside, and that feels icky. So someone who feels like they can't communicate wouldn't necessarily exude positivity. And they're humble, right? They're just really centered in themselves. So that's to me what positivity is. And I'm pretty sure I'm right. Like the words and the descriptions you were using for your people are similar to that. And so what this shows us though, is that positivity has a certain feeling, and that's just, it feels good, the end. Right. And so it's like, to me, this picture of this woman with the balloons, I obviously, okay, not eco conscious. We don't really want to set off that many balloons, but the visual is like a lot of fun, like knowing that positivity feels good and that you deserve to feel good and that a lot of it is under your control based on how you're focusing, right? Okay, really good, guys.
Miss Knowles.
Yeah.
I think what I got out of it, to sum all those different emotions and stuff up, is I know for positivity, for me, it's reassurance. It's not so much that we don't necessarily know it, but to hear it reassured, like, hey, you're doing a great job, or you can do this. I know I can do this, but to hear somebody say that, it's that reassurance that gives that added confidence.
I love that. Did you find that comment because you have someone who's given that to you? Like, or did you know that before?
No. I mean, ironically, when you were talking about positive people, I was one of those people that you just said, it's okay if you can't think of no one. So it really just doing this has given me some self-awareness that I actually pull positivity from within myself by looking for other outside entities. And like for me, it's this guy I listen to, Pastor Furtick, that takes care of the faith side of it. But in order to, get a generalized side of positivity, I get it from Motiversity. And it's like motivational moments that they do on YouTube. I tend to listen to that to start my day off with. So I'm actually one of those people that actually look to pull in that positivity from other entities because I don't have it in my circle. I'm always kind of battling that within my circle of, the needs and wants of other people. But I have to understand that I have to be able to have that healthy balance for myself.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful, lady. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. I feel like I need to almost sit with it as we move forward and like touch base at the end about more of this. Like there's more to say. No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else you want to say right now?
No, I mean, only thing I was going to say is these are components that I already have interjected into my life. And I believe why I have these things is because I'm in recovery. So I've already embraced of having to have these things situated in my life as far as mindfulness, meditation. I have to do those things to keep myself grounded anyway. So these are all learned behaviors for me. But what I like about it is with whole care, it's very rare that you can find a job that is incorporating what you're incorporating and investing into your employees on this level. Because the most common thing people say is, well, you go out and work for me and you make sure that everybody else mind, body, and soul is correct. But you guys are so out far where you're saying, well, I know if I'll invest mind, body, and soul with my caretakers, that's going to make them overall better workers. It's going to let them less stress. Like, just the fact that you're doing that, I'm just like flooded in emotions right now. The fact that you care to do that, because a lot of places don't. And if they can get on a level where you're at with this, I think the world overall will be a better place.
So beautiful. Yeah. I mean, Elizabeth, do you want to interject? I mean, she's the one. You're the one making it happen.
I would love to thank you, Tamika, for recognizing that, because it is my heart. And, I am a caregiver. I've been a caregiver. I was a candy striper at 11 years old. So I completely, and I have tears in my eyes that you recognize that, because it's been our mission for 23 years as a company. Because when I was a tech on the floor, I wasn't seen. I wasn't recognized for the professional that I was. And it's been, part of our process of elevating, people who are caregivers. And unfortunately, I think it took COVID-19 to do that. We're seen as healthcare, seen as essential, and we're seen as frontline, and we're seen as important. But what a beautiful thing that it's happened. And you see that difference in us. And I'm so grateful that you see that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I mean, you guys, full body chills. I mean, big time. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's all just digest that and we'll regroup at the end here. Okay. So my top ways to practice a positive mental attitude are, drumroll, here we go. So in this portion, this is what I want you to do. If you want to turn off your video, you can, because I'm going to suggest a step, and then I'll ask you to close your eyes and go within. We're not going to spend maybe just 2 minutes each on each one. So, again, if it makes you feel better to not feel like you're on the video for this part, because I'm going to ask you to access things in your life. So if it's easier for you to do that without feeling like you're on camera, then take the camera off and I'll tell you when to put it back on. Very good. Okay. So our first one, expecting goodness. Okay. So what I've said here, hang on, I got to move my little gauge. I'm seeing y'all and it's in my way. Okay. So expect goodness. Spend time thinking about the highest and best outcomes for your life. So all of us are facing things. I mean, at the time of COVID, of course, there's so many things you guys could access. So what I'd invite you, close your eyes, focus on your heart, and just think about something that's bothering you and something that it's almost like you've got your mind made up about how that's going to go. I'll use an example of me. My car broke down last week. It's in the shop. I'm Ubering, and well, and then my mom let me borrow her car, and then I got into an accident. And this stuff doesn't happen to me, right? So I'm hyper vigilantly looking at all this what's happening. And so for me, it would be very easy for me to just think, wow, it's all going downhill fast, But I can, and with my specific example, I can feel into, it's really easy for them to fix the car. It's really easy to pay for it. Maybe I'll meet someone wonderful at the garage. Maybe I'll listen to that mechanic who's actually stopped listening to rage music because he could tell it was upsetting him and started listening to symphony music. When you walk in, you hear the symphony. So it's a major juxtaposition to be in a garage, an automotive garage, and listening to classical music, right? So maybe I'll have an amazing connection there. Maybe something really cool, So it's about taking the thing that's heavy and you're like, ugh, and allowing space, make up the highest and best outcome. Okay. So give yourself a minute. I'm going to stop talking. All right. So giving you just a little bit more time with that visual. The highest and best outcomes, because you deserve it. You deserve the goodness. And I mean, just in my own personal life, I just have experienced time and time again, if I expect something bad to happen, it does. And if I have the courage, it takes courage to expect the goodness. But if you practice it, you'll notice it matters where where your state is, where your attitude is. Okay, really good. So you can come back to me and look at the screen for a minute. I'm going to introduce the second one. Again, they're just kind of dropping in and coming back out. So not a deep meditation today. Hang on. Notice nature. Take time to relish nature and let it live within you. So hear me out for a second. Now, if you're in a space where you could walk to a window, again, you don't have to be on the camera right now, so you can walk to the window and kind of take in what's actually out there, what's right there. If you're not where you want to get up, you can go within and think about like a scene that was gorgeous for you, an animal that you love. We all have our favorite, maybe it's a flower, whatever in nature. And why this is important is, we're all here and we're all, to me, nature is symbolizing, God and the universe and abundance. And so as we take in nature, it softens us, it soothes us, it helps us see, oh my gosh, there's so much blooming all around. There's so much oxygen. Like none of us have to, pay a quarter to take in a breath. There's a lot of great positives about nature. And when I say let it live within you, how I do this is a personal example. I was in Maine one year doing work, and I was at this dock and I was leaning into the wind. You know, it was this beautiful, crisp Maine morning, and the wind was blowing really hard. So it's almost like I could lean into it and it was holding me up. And I just thought that was the coolest feeling of having wind hold me up. And so in my heart, if I just open and kind of, it's almost like I'm letting that feeling live within me of being held by nature, that it takes it from just thinking about it to accessing the feeling state, which is really important to your positive mental attitude, is feeling it, right? So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you take in nature in real time out the window if you want, or think about a memory of nature. Really good job, guys. Keep feeling what you're feeling. And as we're coming back from this tip, you know, in other meetings we've had, we've talked about placing the sun in our heart. So even if you're struggling with this right now, you've already done it with me before by feeling the sun in your heart and letting that soothing energy and light ray, nourishing feeling live in your heart. So that if you were struggling with this one, you know, you can lean on the sun, and as you get that, then you can, you know, notice other things. Maybe you've never even thought about what your favorite flower is or what your favorite animal is, you know, and that this is an opportunity to recognize that stuff matters, you know, because it does soothe us to watch nature. I remember there was a low point in my life, and I was kind of hiding out in my car crying, hiding from this situation I was in, and I saw these birds, and I just remember looking at the birds thinking, man, they're just eating, they're just chilling, you know, and it helped me calm down, you know. So remember this about nature. Okay. Choose a balanced reaction. Your emotional reaction has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with you. So this is very intense. And so let's slow it down for a minute. So choose. The biggest thing I want you to take from this one is, when you react to someone, you actually do have a choice in the reaction. Our culture teaches us, you know, you get hit, you hit back, an eye for an eye, that kind of thing. I would want to suggest for you, I mean, depending on the situation, obviously you have your gut instinct, you know what to do. But in general, if you're wanting to develop a more positive mental attitude, then your reaction to someone else's hostility is something like, I'm going to take time to think about that. You know, you need to find a token phrase that you feel good about saying that takes the pressure off of you immediately. So if someone's yelling at me, you know, I'm going to say, you know, I'm so sorry. I can't speak to you if you're doing that, so you work through if in your real life, like right now, maybe this week or today or this month, even you're dealing with emotional reaction or you yelled at somebody, you're doing the best you can. But I really need you to start considering, okay, how I feel about them is actually how I feel about myself, or I wouldn't be upset. And then if you're willing to consider it, then it takes all the judgment off the other person. And maybe you don't know how to work on yourself at that point, but man, you've grown exponentially because you've realized, I don't need to yell back at them. I don't need to do this dance. We've talked about the tug of war. And if you keep tugging, then you're just still in that same fight. And I want to uplift you out of that. You don't need to engage in something that's highly reactive. Okay, so go within, close your eyes, focus in on your heart. Let's think about this. Are you emotionally reactive about something? Maybe you said something to someone you wish you hadn't said. Maybe you stormed away because you didn't know how to talk about it. There's millions of different scenarios. So I want to empower you to just think, okay, you did the best you could in each of those experiences, but now you're in a place to know better and do better. And I believe better would be something to the tune of, the next time you're in that situation, you're going to say, I need time to think about that. So even to think, if a memory is coming to mind, think of almost like play out the scenario. What if you had said that? What if this person was yelling at you and you just said, I need time to think about that? What would their reaction be? You can feel it deactivates pretty quickly. So think through, because this step is more about how you're going to proceed in the future. And so maybe the phrase, I'm going to need to think about that, isn't for you. But you can think about it in this time we have together. What would be the right phrase for you? Really good job, guys. As you're wrapping this one up, I want you to think about, my phrasing I've already given you, but the real point of the phrase, I was landing this to be even more clear. It's about you speaking your truth without pushing back on them verbally. If you're in an argument, you're pushing, well, you did this. Well, you did this. And you're pushing verbally. Okay. So then you want to think of something that speaks your truth. I do not know the answer right now. I need time. You're speaking your truth and you didn't push. And that ends the reactivity. Okay. So think of it that way if you're not sure right now. Really good. Okay. I know that was a deep one. So kind of let's wipe that one away for a moment. Air it out. Ooh. Okay. Now this is obvious, but I have a new spin on this for y'all. So our next step 4 is to love yourself. Now we all heard this and everyone knows that it's challenging, because we're not taught it as young people. Okay, so find your essence within to stop believing you're the labels life gives you. So what I mean by this is when you meet someone, you might say, you'd say your name, I am. It's kind of like whatever you say after I am. I am Lori. I'm a mindfulness coach. I'm from Franklin, Tennessee. I'm an ex-actress. I'm, whatever you're going to say about I am, these are labels and they describe my life, but they're not me. And that this is what I really want to highlight in this step is that this takes meditation to find it, but it means you have an essence that does not have a label. And if you sit in the silence and just feel for you without the labels, you'll find the real you. And this is really deep, beautiful, personal work. And all I really have time to do right now with this one is to suggest it, help you see the difference, because really we're not taught there's a difference. We think collectively that the labels are us. I am where I live. I am what I drive. I am what I do. But that's not true. So focusing on the heart and think about this. Maybe you can even write down the labels that are coming up for you. Or maybe the thing, man, if that was taken, like if someone took mindfulness coaching away, I would have a bit of an identity crisis. And that is because I really love being a mindfulness coach, but it isn't me. So if that happens, then I owe it to myself to understand who am I without it. Okay, so as we lift up out of this one, you can make some final notes on maybe there's some insight you've had about, I really put a lot of emphasis on this part of me, or actually this hobby or this thing I've been doing for years I don't care about anymore. There's a lot of space for you to get some more information about where you're at right now. And how you love yourself. Okay. So this is number 5, extending grace. And this is so huge. And it kind of piggybacks what we were talking about when you react, you can choose to be calm in your reaction. This piggybacks on it, because if you can find grace for the other person, right? So I've said here, everyone is doing the best they can. I know if something unacceptable happens, you're going to think, oh, Lori told me to accept it. Oh no. But your initial reaction is to be upset. It's like realizing, people really are showing up the best they can. Even the girl who hit me in the accident the other day, you think something bad happens, they messed up. She was doing the best she could. she was just doing the best she could. So, but the only way you're going to be able to do this step is if you give yourself grace. This is when it really matters, because if I'm saying this and you're like, no way, I'm not letting them off the hook. It really is. Who are the people on your what's that phrase? Hang on, let's see. You're in the doghouse for you. You know, do you have anyone in the doghouse for you? Because they've wronged you somehow. So I'd lovingly ask you to extend them grace, and you'll say they're doing the best they can, and you're not going to believe it. You're going to be like, that's not true. They knew better. But you're only having that reaction because you're not giving yourself grace. Like whatever you're doing inside to yourself mentally is what you're able to do outside. So anyone who's just leaning in on it being someone else's fault, I know that is a clear signal to me they are not kind to themselves. And so when you give them grace, just think about it. Let's focus in on the heart. Think about who is in the doghouse to you. And all you have to say really is, I extend you grace. Just see them in your mind's eye and say, I extend you grace. And just see what happens for you physically. You're going to feel release because you're not holding them hostage. Let's be with this for about a minute. Okay, so as we're finishing this one up, another visual you can use for extending someone grace is if you see them in your mind's eye and you know that you're mad at them for some reason, you can also just cut the cord on why you're mad at them. You know, there's layers to a situation like that, why you're mad at them, why they did it. But at the end of the day, you just want to be free from that negative connection. Like we've talked about, if you're on the negative end of the battery, you got to do something to get yourself on the positive end, which is cutting the cord. And you can do that in love. I do that with my best friends. It's not about get away. It's actually in love. I disconnect us on this topic because we don't agree right now, and that's okay. I extend you grace. You know, okay.